Hi everyone. I wanted to make a video on solving trig equations because I've been getting a few questions. So here's a practice question that somebody sent me. 3 sine squared x minus sine of x equals 2. So you have a lot of algebra background, so you can see that this looks like a quadratic. So we can go ahead and foil it. So in order to foil it, we gotta subtract 2 from both sides, set it equal to 0. Now, this is what we get when we FOIL, and we'll have to set each one equal to 0 and solve it. So the one on the right is the easy one, where sine of x equals 1. So say to yourself, where is the sine of x equal to 1? You are probably able to jump right to this answer, but when you are finding x, basically what you're doing is taking the sine inverse of both sides. And remember, sine and sine inverses are sine and sine inverse, they're inverses of each other. So one undoes the other, leaving you x. So on the right side, we know x can equal pi over 2, but what about the other side? This is the trickier side. So we have to isolate the sine of x. So we bring 2 to the other side, we divide through by 3. So we have the sine of x equals negative 2/3. So the left side is tricky. So where is sine of theta, or sine of x, a negative number? And this is why you need to know your unit circle big time. So I've drawn out the unit circle. And the first thing I want to talk about is remind you that we have quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. And remember, points along the circle are just xy coordinates or cosine sine values. And just like the signs in the 4 coordinates are the same. So cosine and sine are positive in this quadrant, cosine's negative in this quadrant, cosine and sine are negative in this quadrant, and only sine is negative in the 4th quadrant. The other thing I want to remind you of is that pi is just a number. And as you move forward in math, you're going to pretty much be dealing with radians. So if we go around the circle counterclockwise in the positive direction, pi over 2 is roughly about 1.57. Pi is 3.14. 3 pi over 2 is 4.17. And 2 pi is 6.28. And if you don't believe it, I'm just going to pull up Desmos. You can just type those in if you don't believe it. Like, what is pi over 2 equal? What is 3 times pi over 2 equals? I mean, that's where those numbers come from. Pi is just a number. So now, when we go back, you can see here how I've labeled both in the positive direction for theta and in the negative direction. So remember, when we travel negative, like this here would be minus pi over 2 or negative 1.57. and so on around the circle. So you see how I've got that labeled. So this is the problem that you have. You have to figure out where's the sine of x equal to negative 2/3. So essentially what you're doing, you're taking the sine inverse of both sides. So what do you get when you do that in Desmos? So you can do it arc sine of minus 2/3. And you get minus 0.7, like about minus 0.7297 or minus 0.73. That is a radian, and it's negative. So that means we're starting here and we're moving in this direction, 0.73 radians. So that means somewhere right about here, the value of sine is negative 2/3. That's where it happens. But you know that sine is also negative in the 3rd quadrant, correct? So how do I find the other quadrant? Well, here is the key, in my opinion, is to notice that these two are similar triangles, or in other words, I can take this triangle, I can flip it over the y-axis, and here is this triangle. So it means if this is 0.73, then guess what? So is this. So when you want to find the other angle, you have to take pi plus 0.73. And that's how you would get your answer for this one. That's where the other answer is. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. And that answer is 2.41. Thank you.